God does draw straight with crooked lines. And so reading these books, even from that framework, from that worldview of being a Christian, and actually knowing that there is a standard that judges secularism, there is a standard that, John Locke and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton and these guys do have to submit to. And by God's grace, we have access to that standard. All right. Welcome to another episode of All Are Yours.
All are yours.
This time, Sean has a more tame background and more tame shirt.
Wow. Yeah. It's at least new if it's not tame.
Yeah, I have my normal one.
Your Monday shirt. It's
Monday
not just
shirt.
your normal.
That's
it's
right.
your Monday shirt.
That's right. Correct. Yes, exactly right. So we are in this episode, and I think last time I did not have a book background. You did. This time you don't. I do.
Mm-hmm. I'm still the old guy.
You are. Yeah, I'm still. For now, I'm still a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Relative to almost everybody that I interact with. So there you have it.
Yeah, I've crested that. I keep now being older than probably the percentage of people that I'm interacting with. Yeah, I'm the old guy in the room.
Yeah, there you go. And maybe it's worth for our audience to know, whoever the audience is, that we are, as of this recording, almost 24 hours from me putting a pie in Sean's face. And you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, as you know, because we've shared some information before we press record, because that's what podcasters always talk about, is how they had their conversations before.
Correct. That's right. Yes.
Started.
Yeah. Like we talked about.
Yeah, it is true that for anybody who is interested, I can still taste the chocolate in my mouth. So it took a long time in the bathroom at church to try to get some amount of cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
But I still got home and there was chocolate pudding, because it was chocolate pie
mm-hmm.
with some whipped cream and graham cracker crust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still had chocolate in my ears.
Oh, man.
It was in my beard until I got home and took a shower. For as much as I tried to clean it out, it was all fine, all fun and games. But I still have the taste.
Yeah. Somebody did mention to me, like, hey, it looked like you avoided most of his beard. So it could have been worse.
I think that was your comment to me afterwards, was that, could have gone lower.
That's right, yeah.
Beard. But the encouragement that I got for cleaning up was to work from top down. So it all got into the beard eventually.
Okay.
Anyway. It was in there.
That was kind of my thought, was that it would leak down. So, if I go low, you'll never get it on top. If I go high, it'll come down. So
did you see the picture that Ian posted?
I didn't see the picture of you. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And I saw a video that Ryan took as well.
Yeah.
So there's evidence. There you go. So that's what we do for fun, is we just put pie in each other's face.
I don't think that we can go that far yet. So far, what we do for fun is you put a pie in my face. It's not that it's not reciprocal.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah, hopefully never. Yeah. So I have no interest. So there
you were definitely, because you still had your dress shirt on, and not just a dress shirt, but like
I had my white tie on. Yeah, white with a tie.
Dress shirt.
Yeah.
So you were prepared to get chocolate pie in the face.
I was that confident that I would win. So
yeah.
No, I had an undershirt. If I had to, I would take off the dress shirt and just be in the t-shirt. But yeah, I had my rallying campaign going for Pie for Higgins. So there was some
it did
energy.
have a nice rhythm to it, as everybody was chanting that for a while.
Yeah, very different than Pie for Kuleshov. There was no flow there. Didn't even sound good.
Well, because when you think about Russia, you don't think about pie.
Right.
So no wonder it didn't sound good. It wasn't, not just the number of syllables.
That's right.
It was just the whole idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
something's wrong there. But I mean, it could have happened.
Yeah.
It was close.
It was close. It was too close. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm done with it. You apparently are still dealing with some of the aftertaste.
The residual
Yeah.
impact. Yeah,
So there you go. Hopefully next time I see you, you'll be all cleaned up inside and out.
we can hope.
Yeah. But for this episode is not going to be about pie. Nothing to do with pie at all. We have been talking about off camera for years actually, and months and weeks. Um, a couple different ideas. One is the idea of Christians and reading, Christians and academics, Christians and, you know, long sentences, big books that are even outside of just theology. So we had that episode talking about the attributes of God and some more specifics on theology. But
Diving deep.
right, yeah. But if we hold to an all our yours framework worldview, then we do think that Christians very much should be not just interested in, but at the forefront of much more reading and intellectual study than just theology proper. If Jesus is Lord of all of it, then all of it has to do with him and for him. And whether it's history, whether it's philosophy, whether it's, current studies of even observing the world around us, all of that is connected with the lordship of Christ. So Christians loving God with all their mind includes loving the world that he's made, the people that he's made who are thinking about that world, who have put words on paper to express their thoughts. So it includes all of that. And we also have been talking about the idea that most Christians are not going to be able to be uh, high end graduate academics, right? So I'm one of those who is a college dropout. So there's no degree
And yet
abbreviation.
you did not get the pie in the face.
Yeah, that's true. See,
I've got my
priorities.
master's degree, and what did that get me?
That's what
A
happens.
pie in the face.
That's right. That's right. Yes. And so I think we've mentioned this before, but Robert Capon emphasizes the idea of being an amateur, and amateur as connected to the idea of lover. So not just somebody who doesn't know, but somebody who is seeking to know because he loves, who does because he loves. He's not a professional. He's an amateur as lover, coming from the root meaning of that word.
Yeah. Amo is
Mhm.
the Latin verb for I love.
Mhm.
So it's there at the beginning of amateur. And yeah, doing it for the love of the game
Right.
rather than because you're getting paid to do it.
Mhm.
And potentially you could do a thing both getting paid for what you love to do. That
Mhm.
also is fine. But yeah, amateur has gotten a bad rap, like you're incompetent
Mhm.
or unskilled, when that's not necessarily what its root meaning is, but that you keep doing it because you love doing that thing.
Right.
So
Right.
you could actually be a very skilled amateur.
Mhm.
You can, I mean, like in sports, it used to be the case that you couldn't go to the Olympics if you got paid to do that sport. So at least in the United States, it was only within the last 10 or 20 years. I forget exactly when it was, but when the Dream Team played basketball, the NBA players for the first time played in the Olympics. And our NBA players are supposed to be better than our college players, but our college players were amateurs because at that point, there weren't any deals to pay college athletes for their image or likeness or whatever some of the new rules are today. But yeah, they play because they loved it,
Mhm.
and you can do lots of things because you love it. I mean, I'm a fiction reader in particular, not because I get paid to read or paid to teach it, but because I delight in it.
Mhm.
I enjoy it, and there should be some more intellectual effort, intellectual, academic, deep diving, especially by men, but by women as well, because they enjoy it as a
Hmm.
gift from God. It's part of their image bearing, so they can love it, even if that is, again, not their job, not their profession.
Right. And it seems like, I mean, love, um, I mean, in one sense, is the beginning of our sanctification, and also is the goal of our sanctification. Like, we're learning to love more. You know, we love because he loved us, and we get to know him more as we love him more, so that we would love him more. And so that idea of love being involved in everything we do and think, and um, not just not just the work, but our existence being connected with loving the thing in front of us. The more sanctified we are, the more mature we grow, the more maturity we grow towards, the more love is at the root of even the reasons for why we're pursuing something, why we're doing it. Our delight in the thing ought not be disconnected from our action of doing that thing.
And who says that they love social media? Who says that they
Hmm.
love reading 3 sentences on Twitter,
Hmm.
or they love that 9-second video, that 9-second reel? Though those are fun things.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm This isn't bashing those things. It's just saying, well, I am a lover of Facebook is not something I've heard people do. Now they do it for free.
Right.
They are amateurs in that sense, but not because it is a deep delight.
Hmm.
And so books especially reward that sort of attention given, the sustained focus and thoughtfulness that goes into trying to understand an author's story or the author's argument, that is actually really hard to do in a short little clip.
Hmm.
So again, both and all are
Hmm.
yours, but loving getting deeper into something that we're reading is
Right.
is worth working on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there are a few things that, even as a community with Trinity Evangelical Church, the people within our community are uh, together trying to kind of pull in that direction to be amateur academics, if you could say it that way, or to love books, to love thinking, reading, learning together. I mean, apart from even the Kuyperian camaraderie, there are a lot of times more intellectual type of topics that we discuss that are more difficult to discuss if you have not if you don't know the greater context of those ideas. So men drawing together kind of in that direction, and then some of our ladies do the momnibus, so that's just a fun way to um, that they've named, a way where they read big books together and get together twice a year to celebrate finishing big books and discussing them.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, don't they even dress up? They try to often, not all of the
yeah,
ladies,
yeah,
but some of them even try to get into like period dress, period costumes, like from the daytime age, whatever that might have been the style, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
try to wear that in addition to snacks. So
Right, right.
that also seems appropriate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know how consistent that part is. I know they've done that, but at the very least, I know, like, food themes or something like that. Like, so they finished Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. That one they did it a full year. Um, so they had the first half of the big book. They had a celebration party, and then a second one as well. But yeah, they would have Russian themed food, or even, yeah, maybe some, like,
Not pie.
not
They
pie.
did not
Absolutely
have pie
correct. Yeah,
when they celebrated finishing War and Peace. No.
that's right. Yes. Um, but yeah, so big books like that would be more challenging for busy moms to read on their own. I mean, it's challenging for any moms to read. But when there is a group of them, again, rowing together, pulling in the same direction, encouraging one another. And right now, I think they're finishing Pride and Prejudice, so that's a little bit of an easier read than War and Peace. There are more people involved with that. War and Peace had a little bit less people, or maybe people kind of fell off, didn't finish, but it's
Plus,
not.
there's like 17 different movie versions of Pride and Prejudice.
That's right. Yes. But that also, it's not. They're looking for people who are interested to put in the work to do the reading and come prepared with some thoughts and opinions. And also, it's very open-handed and welcome to even people who have not done it, but are, we want to. Uh, they want people to be drawn towards, or to be pulled towards it. So,
Yeah, a little hook.
correct. Yes.
I think Momnibus might be one of my favorite things that I have absolutely nothing to do with, that
Mm.
like I know about, that's
Mhm.
happening in our group, in our community. So I love, I'm not an amateur Momnibuser because I am a guy, so I don't get to go, but I do love the name. I love that the ladies are doing it. I love what books they have tried, and keep working on. So
Yeah.
that's just, that's perfect. If our moms were reading War and Peace in a month and they had 2 meetings a week, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe that would be too far.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the flexible pace, enough time in between to read and then to be able to talk about it, like that's way encouraging. Like you're saying, can you go to Amazon and buy a set of great books? Sure, but it's not quite as good if you have to do that by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that we have those kind of resources to get almost any book that you want today.
Mm-hmm.
Or listen to the book. Like, what a great technological advance for
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
as and people who are folding laundry, to be able to listen to a book at the same time. I
Yeah.
don't do a lot of lower cognitive physical work to then value being able to listen to something at the same time. Plus, as a dude, I multitask less good altogether. But various cleaning things, or even doing dishes or doing laundry, these kinds of things that allow for a lot of listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jordan Peterson has talked about the rise of being able to get in good information due to a variety of low cognitive tasks, physical tasks. That's great. So the moms who are listening, the moms who are reading, Momnibus is a fun name. I think that is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The guys have other opportunities to do it, even if it's not quite as formal in the guys get together. But even the Comfort College classes that we have had,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that we are continuing to try to do again, a lot of them are, you don't have to try to learn this stuff on your own, but we can do it together.
Right.
You
Right.
there's some amateuring developing of loves that we get to do in community.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so comfort is another way that we're trying to encourage. Again, right now, the focus, the emphasis is on people like us, people who, are not necessarily even high school graduates or of college age, but already have kids, families, work, but see value in this and want to go further in, want to have a deeper dive, and to learn more about it. So we want to create more of those opportunities. And invite more people to join that sort of thing. So whatever your kind of life situation that you have the desire and then the opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah. So you have your own spreadsheet. I'm guessing it's a spreadsheet. I know you have your
You
own
got a plan.
schedule to plod through a bunch of these kinds of books. So can you say some more about your personal amateuring aim to read these books?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would have loved to, go to NSA or some sort of liberal arts, classical, higher education program where they would make me write essays for reading these books. I enjoy stuff like that.
So as a pause, I ignored it. I was trying to avoid it when I was in college. Maybe you've heard this story before. So I was trying to play baseball in college.
Mm-hmm.
I started out at Liberty University, and then I transferred to a small school called Milligan College in Johnson City, Tennessee. And so the myth was that Harvard actually got their humanities program modeled after Milligan colleges.
Mm.
So is that true? I don't know. But the humanities class alone at Milligan College was a 24 credit hour class. So you had to take 6 hours of it your first 4 semesters. So freshman and sophomore years of college, 6 hours. So it was a class that you had every day in some format. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, like every freshman was in a big lecture hall and you got an hour or two of lectures. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have breakout sessions where you talked more specifically with your class. But I remember one semester I should actually say we were assigned to read. I've been assigned to read some really good books.
Nice.
Well, I was not a reader at this point in my life, but I was required to take these classes. So one semester, we must have read Faust by Goethe, and I think we were supposed to have read Moby Dick, and then we read something by Dostoevsky.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to the final paper. Have you heard me tell this story before?
I don't think so.
So we got the last test exam of that semester. The first question was something like Dostoevsky, Melville, and Goethe are having a roundtable discussion about Goethe's character Faust. Give Dostoevsky and Melville's character feedback and recommendations for improving, and then Goethe's response to each in turn. That was the essay question.
That sounds awesome.
And I remember girls started crying because it was only worth 30% of the exam. Like there was more still that you were going to have to do. But I have no idea what I wrote because I hadn't read any of the books.
And there was no AI.
Yeah. We were making up 10-page papers before AI without even having read the books.
Mm.
Exactly. But yeah, I missed out on what was a fantastic humanities program. Little did I know when I was in college that I would care so much now.
Maybe that's why you got the pie in your face.
Is like karma is like coming back around.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but, yeah.
I had opportunity and I blew it.
Yeah.
You didn't even get to go to one of those kind of schools.
Yeah. Yeah. So I enjoy that. I like reading, learning. I'm a footnote reader. I'll do background research on an idea or a person or a date or like one book I really enjoyed. Just kind of, we weren't going to talk about this book, but The Guns of August by Barbara. Forgot her last name. Something. It's somewhere here. But so she's talking about the years leading up to World War One, and then in particular the first month of World War One. So that's August. So the entire book, it's pretty long. It's about the first month, August of World War One, and a lot of detail, a lot of context. She makes it very interesting, and so that was the book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars for because I did want to reread it right away. And I wish she would have kept going. But she has a lot of history books. But a lot of people I get aren't like that. They like more synopsis and summary and kind of, high level flyovers. But I enjoyed the detail, the context, the background information of every character and all of that.
Well, you're a plaque reader.
I
Having
am.
traveled to the East Coast, this past spring together with students from the school and whatever, you were regularly late to the group meetup because you still had more things that you were trying to read,
Correct.
the details. I guess plaques are like physical footnotes, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
you're
true.
just tracing the
Yeah,
the plaque footnotes wherever they lead you.
yeah. Some plaques I took pictures of so I could read up on them later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but so in that way, it does make me. If I'm reading for pleasure in like that, it makes me a much slower reader. I plod through it. And so I get being assigned to reading, and I get different types of reading, and how to read a book. You're reading different books for different purposes. There is a high level flyover approach. There's more of a micro detailed approach, and shouldn't read everything the same way. I appreciate those distinctions, those categories, but particularly for the the great books or the classical readings, or books that have to do with uh, the move of even Western civilization,
Hmm.
and how we got to where we are today with our ideas and concepts. Both history, philosophy, um, people who were influential, wars that changed the trajectory of civilization, or that could have if they had changed a different way. A lot of that, there is a lot of information there that I do value knowing. I think it's important, and so I want to give myself even the adequate time to understand the different backgrounds and contexts of all of that. So my approach, what I do is, I have a morning routine uh, that's the same every day. And so that routine ends with um, about 40 minutes of reading. Um, and the category that I read there is this classical reading. Um,
Yeah,
and
and where'd you get your list? Like
right.
how'd you come up with that?
Yeah. So I do like, at least what I started with was the omnibus list. So uh, from ECS, or even the connection with Logos and ACCS, and so the omnibus material of ancient, medieval, modern, and then it repeats again, ancient, medieval, modern. So going through those texts, um, and I did like your identification of those categories when we did the adult auditing class. Um, the first one was tenebras, right?
Hmm.
So darkness, and categorizing that ancient world, kind of pre-Christ, as a world of darkness, um, uh, you know, with paganism, uh, and even though there was still a lot of common grace that God showed, even for cultures outside of the biblical narrative. So what was happening in Europe during the time of the prophets, or whatnot. But it still is a time of darkness before Christ. So tenebras. Then you had called the medieval world, um, uh, not modium,
Lux.
lux. That's right. So
Yep.
light, right? So omnibus lux. So light came into the world, and so even a big change of the trajectory of human thought and the development of concepts that Christianity brought with it. Even the church fathers building on the apostolic fathers, and kind of how they uh, led led the Western culture through the fall of Rome and into the medieval period. Um, and then that, in some sense, culminating with the Reformation, and then transitioning into the modern world, which then you had called Modius or Modium,
Modius. Yep.
Modius. So, and that's the idea of basket, right?
Yeah. In the parable that Jesus tells, no one lights a lamp and
Mm-hmm.
sticks it in the middle of the room and then puts a basket over it. The Vulgate's translation is Modius
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for basket. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
had the light,
Yep.
and then moderns have put a covering over top of it,
Yeah, yeah,
ignorantly, stupidly, rebelliously.
yeah. So I think those identifiers are helpful to even help categorize some of the world that you're reading right now, right? So you're reading something in the ancient world. Okay, this is a pre-Christ. This is paganism. Uh, they don't have a lot of the concepts that we take for granted. We just assume. Even reading the beginning of the medieval period, with even before Augustine or even right after Augustine, um, uh, pre Nicene Creed, pre Apostles' Creed, a lot of even the ideas again that we take for granted, about even theology proper, about attributes of God that they were working out, discovering, kind of arguing through them, um, and then seeing how then people started taking those things for granted. And so we thought maybe some of our all our years episodes, every now and then, we could take a book or two and talk about it, and as amateur academics, discuss some of the ideas and concepts of those books. So right now I'm working through Alexis de Tocqueville. I don't know how to pronounce his French name, um, but his Democracy in America. So Democracy in America, and then he has 2 essays on America as well. So maybe this is just a teaser. We could talk about that at a later time. I'm halfway or so done through that one.
Yeah, de Tocqueville. I don't remember exactly. Do you remember what years he was visiting the United
Yeah,
States?
1830. So he was
Okay.
here during Andrew Jackson, and then he wrote his book in 2 volumes a few years after that. So he
Okay.
finished the second volume by the end of that decade.
So 50-ish years
Mhm.
after the
Right.
war for independence, and
Pre-Civil War.
traveling through and seeing what made America tick, what made the
Right.
United States in its form at that point tick. I've read a part of it
Mhm.
previously as part of Omnibus, and it was very interesting.
Mhm.
Some of the observations as an outsider that
Yeah.
he was making on some things that we've lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
We in America have put a basket over some of the good light that we had,
Yeah.
even politically. But
Yeah.
seeing
And
what he described was fascinating.
yeah.
We can talk about that more.
Yeah, yeah. In particular, he was even his perspective in America being a European and a European Frenchman. So France at that time was still in the middle of their back and forth revolution. So starting from 1789 and then Napoleon, then they had another revolution. And so for
Hmm.
100 years, France kept being in this revolution. And so de Tocqueville was more of an aristocrat. He was more of the nobility, but he seemed to try to have a balanced approach to valuing or appreciating democracy and also aristocracy. And so he's writing about American democracy as a test case for how things could be, because democracy was not working in France. And but also people were criticizing aristocracy. And so he covers not just the politics, but everyday life, family, religion. He talks a lot about Christianity, and kind of the even everyday Christianity that affects America's life. So that
Yeah,
is.
which wasn't affecting France.
Hmm. Hmm.
There was nothing, no way to attach Christian principles to the French Revolution.
Hmm.
There are actually ways to see how some of the assumptions of Christianity, including that no man is absolute sovereign over another man,
Hmm.
that because God is sovereign, whereas the
Hmm.
French Revolution wanted to argue that no man is sovereign over another man, but there was no God over top any of the men.
Right.
So the French Revolution and the American War for Independence, very much different.
Right.
I don't remember getting told that when I was in high school.
Hmm.
I think that the Revolutionary War in America and the French Revolution, even in terms of what they were called,
Hmm.
was understood to be largely the same.
Right.
But turns out they weren't.
Right. Yeah.
And de Tocqueville knows that as well.
Yeah, 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 and even then, understanding how we got to where we did, even with France and America, and there is a very direct step by step walk from the Protestant Reformation, leading into the revolutions in England. With the Scottish Covenanters, the establishment of Parliament. What England did with the king, what they did with the Commonwealth, how they tried to set all that up, and then a lot of that foundation being both used in the American War for Independence and used in the French philosophers like Rousseau to set the foundation for the French, eventually saying no God, no masters,
Right.
and a very, very different contrasted approach. But both um, guys like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who were secularists. Thomas Jefferson in particular was a deist. Um, James Madison was still a secularist even in his approach. He wanted that sort of neutral state, but their culture, the air they breathed, even the words they spoke, was very much Christian, and so a lot of even their ideas in both the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution connected very closely. It was on the tail end of the English Revolution of that whole time period. So the Glorious Revolution in the 1680s, so a little less than 100 years before the American War for Independence, and then how a lot of those Covenanters and Scottish Presbyterians left England, came to America, and even stirred up the atmosphere for what ended up happening here in America. Um, and so, understanding a lot of that conversation, you can't even really continue the conversation in what is happening in America today. I mean, you can, but you also can't without seeing that connection going all the way back to the English Revolution and how all those ideas are just building on top of each other, and it's very, very intertwined. We're here because of this, because of this, because of this, and so um, in particular, during that time in the 1650s or so, you had Thomas Hobbes, who wrote Leviathan. And so that was the English people trying to figure out, again, the idea of man's state of nature. That's the idea that came about, and that phrase kept being brought about. State of nature is a state of chaos. It's a state of war. That man's natural state, um, and the conversation being moved from even a Christian approach to a much more humanistic, secular analysis. Um, they would assume God, they would assume scripture, but it became much more implicit and much more rational. So then, kind of in response, so Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan is arguing for, because man left to himself is anarchy, we need a strong state. We need the state controlling the church. We need the state controlling the people. And so, in response to that, John Locke wrote his Treatise of Civil Government. So, Treatise of Civil Government. And a lot of Locke's thoughts were in response to Thomas Hobbes's thoughts about what to do with the state of nature. And so, Locke then used a lot of that state of nature idea to bring about how people maybe grew up, or made rational decisions to bring about consent. And so that is kind of Locke's foundation to his uh, uh, philosophy of how society ought to be run, is by the consent of the governed. And so,
Yeah,
I don't know if,
social contract was his, that he's the one who's mostly attributed even to that phrase, that idea,
yeah,
social contract.
social contract, and yeah, yeah. So that part of the people agreeing to get into uh, a mutual relationship to govern society. Um, and so I don't know, yeah, if he could have used the word consent more, but he keeps bringing that up: the consent of the governed, the consent of the people. So he's basing all government on on the people's consent, and so even to the point of government is mm, uh, like not legitimate if it is not based on the people's consent. Um,
Which still is humanistic and still then has a God.
hmm
It's just then that the people, or
Right,
somehow this idea of the people's will,
right.
which can't actually be separated from persons, but there's like this mythical will
hmm
that can be found, that necessarily must be found, but then that is the God, the functional God. Obviously, Locke
Right.
wasn't calling the people's will God,
hmm
divine,
hmm
and yet that is the great authority. So I mean, if the majority, if the people will a particular ridiculous thing, well, then the God of the system is willing that particular thing.
hmm
So better, I guess, than Rousseau in some ways, but or Hobbes,
hmm
better than Hobbes, and definitely better than Rousseau,
hmm hmm
but still missing what is actually making up human beings and what's wrong with us.
Right. Right.
And just getting us, a bunch of us in the room, to agree on something doesn't actually mean we're going to thrive, that we're
Right.
going to be fruitful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he's writing on the tail end of the century long battle, um, and not just in England, but in all of Europe, kind of post Reformation, understanding the relationship between church and state and where man where the common man falls into that. So he's moving that ball forward in that game of modern liberty, so to speak. So his idea of emphasizing consent and focusing on even natural law as the foundation for civil interaction, kind of what even you're talking about, natural law as that foundation instead of God's law, um, and arguing for that consent. He's laying that sort of foundation for secularism that then actually Rousseau follows on. A lot of Rousseau's stuff is built on Locke stuff. He even works Locke's stuff into his work, that then the French Revolution does build on. And so I think John Locke, I mean, he seemed to be a real believer. He does talk about God. He talks about God's authority, but it seems like he very much takes it for granted and assumes a lot of. Um, he doesn't just take God's law for granted. He takes Christendom for granted. I don't think just reading Locke. I don't think he could imagine what real secularism would look like. Like, well, yeah, of course we would always know that Jesus is Lord of the system, or that we're all Christians, but under this umbrella of being Christians, how do we live? Um, and so I think that's some of the even downfall of what we see in today's uh, modern world, even postmodern world, can very much be attributed to Locke's secular ideas of disconnecting our morality from Christ, disconnecting our morality from the Bible, and basing it just on the consent of the governed. Like that is the ultimate authority, is the consent of the governed. And so, yeah, we would not have the sort of liberty that we enjoy in America without John Locke, and also we wouldn't have the sort of secular disaster that we experience without a lot of those ideas. So it's messy, and it's how we got here.
Yeah. Well, because I was assigned, I'm sure, to read founding documents when I was in high school, potentially at some point when I was in college. I didn't until going through omnibus kind of things when we started ECS. And at least my eyes were open, or I was ready to see it in a different way. even the lack of like a religious test for holding office. Like I
Hmm.
remember thinking, I think that probably is too big of an open door that is wrong, which it's just a different application of what you just described, where there were some cultural assumptions,
Hmm.
some implicit agreements, including generally assuming that people were Protestant, probably
Hmm.
in the United States. Were there some Catholics? Were there some Jews? Yeah. But generally speaking, the majority of the population would have been connected to a Protestant church of some kind, regardless of what denomination. So it does seem like lack of religious test meant, well, you didn't have to be Presbyterian or Baptist or
Hmm.
Anglican or congregational or whatever it was going to be. You didn't have to do one of those because the assumption was, well, you were probably then at least a Trinitarian Christian,
Hmm.
though again, some not everybody was, but there was the assumption of some God above the state that then, well, okay, we can build on that, except now we've moved far enough. We've seen in our
Right.
history that uh, some of the some of the principles of freedom like that then open the door to people who didn't share those assumptions.
Hmm.
And a religious test of some kind probably would have been appropriate.
Hmm.
What's that like? Religious test of the Apostles' Creed, because that's pretty basic. That's what the shortest one
Hmm.
out of the
Hmm.
main creeds and confessions. All right, well, does that mean everybody who could say I accept the Apostles' Creed is a genuine Christian? No, because can't guarantee that either. But like lack of any kind of conversation like that
Hmm.
has led us to freedom that's destroying us from the inside.
Right. 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 Like you may not talk about that.
Yeah.
That's different even than, um, you know, it's not the explicit foundation.
I'm sure that for a long time I thought that the division between church and state meant what you're describing there, which is like a separation of morality and state almost.
Hmm. Hmm.
A separation of any kind of religious conviction
Hmm.
or worldview that relates to morality or transcendent things, transcendent truths,
Hmm.
let alone a transcendent God, that state could function out on its own and make up its own ideas.
Hmm.
I am sure that I thought that, and because that's how we would have been taught.
Hmm.
The assumptions are that political theory has nothing to do with any kind of heart issue,
Right. Right.
when in fact the comments that Hobbes or that even Locke were making about man's nature, man's condition,
Hmm.
these are actually an acknowledgement of a sin problem.
Hmm.
And well, you need something more than political laws or political theory or a two-party system
Right. Right.
to actually overcome and deal with man's sin. Not that you can't make any other decisions, or that there's no place to consider the will of the governed.
Hmm.
That's not It's not that we just put the Bible there and say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So therefore what people want doesn't matter.
Hmm.
But to divide them entirely, like we've gotten to the point more so in our country, yeah, that has not helped us,
Yeah.
turned out.
Yeah. Yeah. The secular worldview. I mean, we're born into it. People,
Hmm.
and it's just people born in the last 150 years, maybe 200 years, who are born into that growing assumption that secularism is actually something that is a viable option. And we live in this kind of aquarium, and that all we know is these walls. But for thousands of years, all of human history, uh, there was no separation between religion and politics. Like that is those things go hand in hand all the time in any kind of society, whether it's Christian or pagan. Um, there is always that sort of devotion, loyalty, connection with who your God is. And a lot of times, yeah, that has been um, nominal and habitual, um, cultural maybe, but it has been acknowledged. And yeah, you've had plenty of Christian rulers and Christian societies that are not uh, living Christianly, that are not Christ-like, they're not obedient. I mean, look at the entire history of Israel's theocracy, right? So, very explicit and acknowledged God of that system, and um, a lot of sin, a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of
Golden calves.
disobedience, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
um, and so, but yet still the concept of secularism, where it's possible to be in some sort of neutral cloud nirvana that is disconnected from any religion, is a very not just new idea, but idea that has quickly failed. Like we have quickly seen the end result of what that leads to. And I think guys like John Locke were maybe at the beginning of that, trying to see, can this work? Um, fault like so. Right before John Locke, you had the Scottish reformer. Um,
John Knox.
Right, John Knox. And so he's very explicit in God's law, and he's trying to rebuke the political rulers of Scotland and England based on God's law there, right? So there was no neutrality for him. And so it was just a few decades after that that somebody like John Locke kind of tried to formulate that sort of, hey, maybe there is some sort of not secularism or neutrality, but consent of the people that is the ultimate authority. That's what we should base it on. Um, so then you had that eventually did lead to the American War for Independence and those ideas. That's just the the same conversation that was happening with the English Revolution. Continued in America. And so when Parliament then became acting like a tyrant, started acting like a tyrant over America, and so it's the same ideas that people drew out of in order to push back against that. Um, and so you have Christian speak and Christian aroma and a lot of Christian assumptions, but you still do have a secular type of understanding at the foundation of even America's founding. So even some of the things that Thomas Jefferson and the founders were writing about and talking about um, uh, were pushing towards more kind of that secularism. So then James Madison, who wrote most of our Constitution, um, uh, had a lot of those ideas um, pressed forward. And so you had Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay together under the surname Publius wrote the Federalist Papers, right? And so um, this was an organized attempt by Alexander Hamilton, mostly, to promote the Constitution and to bring it forward because the states had to, or the people of the states had to ratify it. Um, and so you had a lot of people who were even maybe like old timers who were um, guys like Patrick Henry who fought or were big promoters of America's war for independence, who hated the idea of a federal government, who hated the idea of a U.S. Constitution. They were just fine living under the Articles of Confederation. But the Articles of Confederation were quickly showing themselves to be weak in how states interacted with each other. And so that's why James Madison and Alexander Hamilton those are maybe the top two guys who were trying to push forward this idea of the states uniting under one national government. They originally it was Federalists who were for state government, nationalists who were for national government. Then the nationalists rebranded themselves as Federalists in order to kind of take that image. And they were organized and thought through and published the Federalist Papers on a newspaper release that they were intended. They had it organized and planned and were intended to compile into a book. That was the idea. The book was going to be called The Federalist. And so, where other people who were opposed to that uh, were publishing kind of sporadic and maybe even contradicting views that now we have together called the Anti-Federalist Papers. Um, but
which is losing branding.
right, right,
Like that, anytime you have to say anti something, you're in trouble.
right, yeah,
I mean, probably you're in trouble. In addition to, I mean, how do you make a collective force of the people who don't want a collective force
right,
to
right,
argue against the people who really want the collective force?
yeah,
Like that, you can see the irony of it now farther out.
right,
But yeah, I mean, they were in trouble from the beginning.
right, right,
Even though, because a couple years ago at ECS, I taught the omnibus class that reads through the founding documents, Declaration and Constitution and so forth. And
mhm,
we read some of the Federalist and some of the Anti-Federalist papers. And we had a debate in class. It took a couple days, I think, where half of the class were the Anti-Federalists and half of
mhm,
the class were the Federalists. And they had to argue for which was better.
mhm,
And I mean, knowing what we know now, well, the Anti-Federalists were largely right in seeing as soon as you start centralizing the power,
mhm,
well, that central power is not going to give it back up.
mhm,
The more you give to them, the more they're going to take, and they're going to be able to protect it and hold on to it. And yet, also, you can see, okay, well, if all of our 50 states, let's say, and it wouldn't have worked out like that, I'm sure, but if all of our 50 states had to defend ourselves individually against states that had, or become great nations,
mhm,
well, I mean, Missouri is not defending itself. I
mhm,
mean, Missouri at least is in the middle of nowhere and maybe not very many people want it.
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, how is California going to be able to protect itself from Japan or China, coming across the Pacific Ocean kind of thing?
mhm,
So it's a great discussion, but it's also not just theoretical. Like
right,
we're actually living in some of the good and a good
right.
portion of the bad from where we went.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, these guys were building things, right? They for them it was not just hypothetical theory. Like we talk about it looking back as more from a removed situation. I think sometimes when we talk about history, we maybe have that privilege, but when we're trying to build things, when we're trying to create institutions and make things happen, you don't have the privilege of abstract uh, abstractions that cannot be made real today, right? Um, and sometimes maybe you can give yourself the time to uh, eh, create your context that would allow for your ideal world to come about. But most ideologists are revolutionaries that end up burning up more than they actually build. Um, but those who build, those who are reformers, do have to work with the material that they have. Um, and so, yeah, I think also we look at history, how it ebbs and flows, and we build on top of that as well. Like, you by God's grace, hopefully we can learn from the mistakes of our fathers. Um, but we could also appreciate the work that they did. And so, even living in the America we do today, just like with John Locke, with James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, they very much based it on a secular worldview. It was explicit in the Federalist Papers. There's a lot of that sort of thing. Um, uh, James Madison, as did Thomas Jefferson, were much more removed from the world of Christendom than even John Locke was. And John Locke, um, he smelled of it. Like reading John Locke, you get the sense that he's living in the cloud of Christendom. Um, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton are not like that. It's much more rational. It's much more scientific. It's much more modern. Um, and so that is at the foundation in America, is this mixture. It's a mixed concrete ingredient of tail end Christendom and front end modernity that hardened, that solidified together. Um, and we are now the recipients of that. We have the consequences of that. And so even a lot of our arguments today across the aisle, or even like these big contrasted viewpoints of people who are just speaking past each other, I think is these different ingredients of Christendom, of Jesus as Lord of every square inch type of thing. Even though that was, Kuyper said that after all those guys. And also secularism worked out to its full conclusion, that none of it actually has any foundation. That is what postmodernity is. Modernity is humanism rising to the top. It's rationalism. Man is God. The state is God. Postmodernity has seen the failures of that in World War I and World War II, and has said, actually, none of it matters. None of it is real. There is no morality. And so we are the children of that, living in this world now.
Instead of, because blind people can't see, instead of acknowledging that the problem of modernity was the human pieces in it,
Right.
not the morality pieces or truth pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just keeps, it's human centered, it's man centered, which is what Kuyper in his context was trying to acknowledge, was that God's sovereignty or man's sovereignty are really your only options.
Mm-hmm.
And so our post-modernity is recognizing that a man-sovereign society stinks. It's destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're back to hopeless. We hoped in man who
Right.
could bring us to utopia, and that brought us war. Well, right. But that doesn't mean that the morality or the truth part also should go away.
Mm-hmm.
It was men who were ignoring truth and morality who actually got us into the problem that we're in. Yeah, so post-modernity's identification of the problem is wrong. It's interesting, when we were talking just a few minutes ago, even about the bad branding of anti-something,
Mm-hmm.
that Kuyper, who started a political party, called his the anti-revolutionary party, as specifically an alternative to French revolutionary thinking of no God, no masters. No, we need a God above the state. We need something transcendent above men. And anti-revolutionary, or the historical Christian party, that also was not a great name. That was his other option, the more positive side, but too vague to be any good. But yeah, it's either God is sovereign or men are sovereign.
Right.
And even the idea of being able to read the books and participate in this society is what we're trying to do ourselves, but also trying to encourage other people to do as well.
Right.
So the arguments across the aisles that we watch on TV, donkeys and elephants, how many of them even know what they're talking about?
Right.
It doesn't actually seem like very many of them know what they're talking about. And the demand for immediate fixes. Well, what book can you read where there was an immediate fix to something,
Mm-hmm.
or that got immediately fixed that had long-term benefit? A Caesar could immediately make a new law, and put that into immediate effect. But did that actually then work out
Mm-hmm.
when that Caesar was gone, or even 4 weeks from when he made that change, kind of thing? So being able to be patient enough to finish a book
Mm-hmm.
is a good practice to being able to be patient while waiting for a good law to come into effect, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, for Jesus as Lord to actually become the defining principle of even Christian lives.
Yeah.
The living like Jesus is Lord of all of this doesn't even really seem to be how most professing Christians act. So then how are we going to get
Right.
a, a broader society who in general is more secular,
Right.
postmodern?
Yeah.
Well, that's going to require a lot more work than just a tweet
Mm-hmm.
to be able to fix that. And if we read some more, we'd probably get that better perspective.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And again, it was Christians who introduced the idea of secularism. Who kind of brought that about. And I mean, this is not a great book or a book, a classical book. This one is written in the 90s, but it does do it's a thin book called The Emergence of Liberty in the Modern World by Douglas Kelly. I'd recommend this. It covers the move of Calvin's thoughts. So, John Calvin, his thoughts of even his political theory through then Geneva, Huguenot France, Knox's Scotland, Puritan England, and colonial America. And so again, a lot of the kind of idea of how the lordship of Christ then moved towards a more secular approach, and the good that a lot of that did do, and then some of the uh, bad eggs in the omelet that got put in as well.
And where'd you find the Kelly book? Was that in a footnote? Because I don't think that's in the omnibus curriculum.
It's not omnibus curriculum. Yeah, this is in the 90s. I don't remember. Somebody mentioned it at some point somewhere, probably on some podcast.
Podcast changed the world.
That's right. Yeah. But it's short. It's like 140 pages. And it's I think he does a good job kind of explaining. So if people are interested, they could check that out as well. And yeah, cover some of that. But again, the idea is even just to love knowing, how we got to where we are today. Love understanding, like even throughout all of that, string, seeing God's work in all of it too. Um, it's centuries of man's ideas and man's thoughts, but that is not undivided from God, even if those men are trying to divide themselves from God. God is using that, He's working that in. And you see men be wrong, that then leads to some sort of glory for Jesus, some sort of glory for God. So God does draw straight with crooked lines. And so reading these books, even from that framework, from that worldview of being a Christian, and actually knowing that there is a standard that judges secularism, there is a standard that, John Locke and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton and these guys do have to submit to. And by God's grace, we have access to that standard. We have access to the words that are not wrong, are not in error. And we put these guys' words kind of in comparison with God's word to see where they are mistaken or wrong. So I think that is a huge uh, advantage of even reading Western history from a Christian perspective, and then knowing the end of the story, that Jesus is working all this out for His glory and for the good of His people.
So if people have made it this far into the podcast, to be clear, we think you should read the Bible first.
Correct. Yes.
And we think that you should take the words in the Bible seriously for what they are, not impose meaning from the outside.
Correct.
So yes, read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible, which is why Omnibus Lux got to be what it is. I mean, Jesus came and he was the light of the world, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But then even the difference that the medieval age had compared to before Jesus came, because Jesus then came and then left, but was that then we had his word. And so then we got the actual canon of the Bible before we care about the Western canon of the books that have helped shape and direct Western civilization. But read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible, then read all the other books in light of the Bible.
Right.
Which is just a different way to jump up and down on the point that you were making. And it's what we're trying to do for our kids at Evangelical Classical School. Obviously, homeschoolers can have the same sort of priority and be doing the same kind of thing. But at ECS, trying to give our kids that love, the amateur reading ability, and worldview that we didn't get when we were younger. And then even with Comfort College and providing that sort of thing, whether they're right out of high school or they're adults. I mean, we're trying to provide for people like us who want more, who realize what they didn't get and or who are wanting it for their kids as well and are trying to grow in their academic loves. Because the kids hardly ever... it's true that we want our kids to go further than us, but we're probably not going to kids who do different than us. So if I have no amateur academic interests, I'm probably not going to be raising kids that are going to have academic interests beyond me. Maybe that could happen. So they can go past me in terms of what they grasp, but I should at least be showing them which direction, which means I got to keep reading and I got to keep loving and learning and developing even further to show them that way. And that's what we're trying to do in our community. That's what the moms are doing.
That's right.
Like the kids are gonna so benefit from their moms reading War and Peace or Pride and Prejudice or whatever it is, and not because mom is sitting them down at the breakfast table over oatmeal and like going over character and plot of the novel kind of things, but their moms are going to be blessing their families. Guys have different opportunities to do that same kind of thing. And if we don't do that, then our society is going to continue to get into greater trouble and potentially move us back into a different kind of dark ages. I mean, when we're putting the bucket over the light, we're turning the lights out and heading into more darkness. It's up to us. Who else is going to do something about it if Christians aren't trying to do something about it?
Right. Yeah.
We'll probably have to read a book more than a tweet.
That's right. All right. Well, there you have it. So that's on being amateur academic. You just love it. You don't get paid for it.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Out.